We are so glad that you're here. Welcome. We're so glad that you came to the Christmas night. For my family, there's many traditions that we kind of have during Christmas time. We always go and look at lights together and decorate cookies and drink hot cocoa, stuff like that. But this is one of our very favorite traditions, and probably the most important tradition is making time during this busy season to remember the story of Christmas and to remember where it all started. And we're really excited about this year, kind of recreating maybe a little more what it would have been like that first Christmas and this manger scene. So we're really excited we were able to do that and have you guys experience Christmas maybe in a new way. I hope that everybody was able to, you and your family found some seats. If you need to use the restroom during the services, all the way on your left there's a sign that kind of directs you towards where those are located at. And on each seat when you got here there were two items. There was a candle and kind of a postcard. The candle you can just set underneath your seat or wherever you want to, so you can pull it out later in the service when we need those. And the postcard has some information on it about being able to help support a great cause that you can help support tonight. This year we are supporting the Jasper County Crisis Center. The Crisis Center is a shelter that provides emergency housing and outreach services to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in Newton, Jasper, and Pulaski County. And for every person that texts the word Christmas to the number that's listed on your postcard there, we're going to donate $1 to the Crisis Center. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that right now. But tonight we are going to remember the story of Christmas. We're going to read some of the Christmas story, read some of the scriptures prophesying Jesus' birth, and we're going to hear the story in kind of a new way tonight. I'm really excited about being able to experience that together. But we're going to start out by singing a couple Christmas songs. This one was written over 300 years ago. So stand with me together and let's sing this together. We're going to sing Joy to the World. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive the King. Let every heart prepare Him room. Heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let all the songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. Oh, joy to the world. He rules the world. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of His righteousness, wonders of His love, and wonders of His love, and wonders of His love. The prophet Micah wrote, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be a ruler over all Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor bears a son, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they will live securely, for then His greatness will reach to the ends of the earth, and He will be our peace." Oh, little town of Bethlehem, The first Noel, the angels did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. The herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Away in a manger, no crib for a bed. The little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus, asleep on the hay. You can have a seat. I'm going to read Luke chapter 2. It says, in those days a decree went out to Caesar Augustus that all of the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, the town of Nazareth, to Judea, the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn.
I didn't know. I mean, how was I to know? I'm just an innkeeper. What right do I have to know anything? I mean, there were thousands of years of prophecies, but nobody really figured it out. I'm responsible for the saddest line in the whole story. No room in the inn. You know who said that, actually said that? Well, you don't know, because my character doesn't even merit a name in the story. I'm just responsible for Jesus having been born in a barn. And before you go all high and mighty on me, thinking like, if I was the innkeeper, I would never have blah, blah, blah. You had 2,000 years of hindsight. I just had the benefit of ignorance. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he was coming. Everybody knew he was coming. We had plenty of prophets preparing us for his coming. The what and the how and the who, we couldn't quite figure any of that stuff out. The where, we knew exactly where, because Micah had made it very clear that he was going to come from Bethlehem. But that was 400 years ago. I mean, a lot can happen in 400 years. Actually, nothing happened in 400 years. Nothing. No prophet, no word from God, absolute silence. I mean, if you want people to start losing attention and focus, just don't talk to them for 400 years, right? So back to me, anyway. It's not my fault. This was their home of origin. Joseph and Mary, this was where their family originated. So you can't tell me that Joseph didn't have an uncle, that Mary didn't have an aunt, that there weren't cousins somewhere. Wasn't there anybody in their family willing to step up and help them out? They show up at my place. By the looks of it, she's barely a teenager. She's with this guy that, word on the street, they're not even married yet, and we're not even sure he's the father. She's completely exhausted and ready to pop at any moment. He is stressed out of his mind. So what am I to do? Why am I not the good guy in the story? At least I gave them a room. It's not much, but it's what I had. So I did what I could. Speaking of hindsight, I mean, when I look back at all of that, it just actually kind of makes sense to me now. I mean, only in hindsight does a lot of things with Jesus make sense. Seriously. But think about it. I mean, he had nowhere to be born. He grows up. He has nowhere to lay his head. 3 years into his ministry, he has no one to defend his cause. He's hanging on the cross. All of his followers have abandoned him. Only his mom, who, if you ask me, she was the only one who really knew in her heart who he was and why he came. So why am I telling this story? You know, after everything's over, one of his followers, John, wrote in his book, he came into the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not know him. He came into his own, and his own received him not. In other words, no one was giving him room. No one was willing to give him room. And for me, I mean, this is what makes Jesus so compelling, so attractive. Living in a world who had no interest in giving him room, and yet that was his mission in life, is to give all of us room. I mean, he was in the very nature God and did not consider equality with God something to be held on to. He left heaven. He was born in a barn. He lived his entire life as a servant. He died as a criminal, all in the effort to give us room. There was no place he was unwilling to go. No place too dark, too dirty. No one too common or broken. I mean, this was his life. He befriended children and encouraged women and touched lepers, and he actually had a good time with a tax collector. That was not a put on. He really had a good time with tax collectors. The prostitute and the Pharisee, he loved both of them like they were equal. The deaf, dumb, blind, there was no one he didn't make space for. He loved everyone. It was like he could look into the heart of every one of us and see a soul worth saving. So it's just like him to take the saddest line in the story, no room in the inn, and transform it into the greatest promise of his story. In my Father's house are many rooms. I mean, get this. This is incredible. At the very end, he's hanging on the cross between two obvious criminals, two thieves, getting exactly what they deserved. And he turns to one of them and says, "Hold on. I've got a room waiting just for you." And 2,000 years later, he's still doing it. He's still making room. He's still standing at the door knocking, hoping that any one of us, that all of us would make room in our hearts for the one who had a place in his heart for you. He left heaven so we could go to heaven. He was condemned so we could be forgiven. He was forsaken so that we would never be forgotten. He gave up his place so that we could have a place with him. I didn't know it then, but by the grace of God, I know it now. And that's my story. You did leave your home and your kingly crown to come to the earth for me. But in Bethlehem's town there was found no room for your holy nativity. Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus, there is room. Yeah, there is room in my heart for thee. That's my story.
And now we've come to a very special part of the service, lighting of the candles. So kids, if some of you have glow sticks, this would be a great time to go ahead and get them out and break them if you have not yet, so they'll work for you. And let me give you just a quick word of instruction with the candles. If your candle is lit, keep it vertical. This will keep wax off of everybody else. And if your candle is not lit, then light it like so. And we are going to sing Silent Night together while we're lighting our candles. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is fine, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, must your light, radiant beams from thy holy face. With the dawn of redeeming grace, Jesus, born at thy birth. Jesus, born at thy birth. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. And then Jesus spoke again to the people and he said, I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never fall in darkness, but will have the light of life. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, and neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. And in the same way, let your light so shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now let's raise our candles up high above our heads and sing this last verse together. Go ahead and blow out your candle. It's incredible to be able to have this moment together and share this with you and so many of our family. We have one more song to sing before we close tonight. I have just a few closing instructions for you first. After the service, the ushers are going to come and allow you to exit one row at a time. That way there's not a big crowded line on the way out, so just be patient and wait for them to come to your row. We hope that you and your family have a very Merry Christmas, and if you'll stand with us, we're going to sing one last song together before we go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. The shepherds kept their watching o'er silent flocks by night. Behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. The shepherds feared and trembled when low above the earth rang out the angels' chorus that hailed our Savior's birth. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lowly manger, the humble Christ was born. God sent us salvation, that blessed Christmas morn. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is. Now one more time. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. That is born. That Jesus Christ is born. That Jesus Christ is born. hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So just wait for the ushers to come and let your row exit. And you can leave your candle